Good evening and welcome in, Warriors, to another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, and always muted when we start this show, Mr. Robert Hagan. Robert, man, how you been?
And it's just been busy trying to catch up and be ready for football. Can't believe we start practice in basically 13 days for the junior high. It's crazy.
I think it's coming up quick. I know Lewiston football has just gotten their preseason stuff underway. A lot of other schools doing so as well. We'll get into more of the high school stuff as we get closer to the first games of the year. Lewiston's first game will be August 26th, and Clarkson and Stoughton both get going on September 1st. A couple of announcements to get going before we dive all the way into the show. A couple of hours ago, actually, it was Robert Hagan who broke the news to me on our own Facebook page as I was scrolling through. But Case, why not? The fantastic Lapwai Wildcat basketball player has committed to play college at Utah State. Hagan, as I told you off air, it wasn't like you were kind of surprised why not is already committed to a school. I just told you it's not like he can wait for a Pac-12 school to offer him anything because those are kind of all gone at this point. But really, really awesome news for Case here today.
We'll talk a lot about Pac-12 here in a little bit, but yeah, he had many visits over the last about 2.5 months, different schools, some Big Sky schools really interested in him, but I was extremely shocked to see him gravitate and go that way. His dad, Jeremiah, why not posting that he had committed today. So yeah, it will be interesting, but we know how some of these things work. Some of them decommit in the middle. Not to take anything away from a friend of ours, as Lewiston boy had changed many times from UW baseball to Idaho football and then back to LCSC. And we're talking about I'm drawing a blank now all of a sudden. Randall. So it's just crazy to think about that how some of these kids are already ready to go. So
I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. I apologize to him. On today's show, we will discuss the AFC and NFC North divisions, give you our first official previews. Also, if you have not checked out our power rankings, those got posted last night. Thanks to a bunch of R&R Sports Report friends for helping us out do that. We'll be doing that every single week during the regular season. Of course, Major League Baseball is continuing its regular season. Some teams are going in other directions than others. We'll talk about that. Sports-related draft is based around the Pac-12. We'll look back at the positives of the Pac-12 before we completely put it to bed. And, of course, we talk some Aussie rules football and other sports as well. FIFA World Cup for the women ended early Sunday morning. While the rest of us slept, so did the offense for the U.S. women. And we will get to the answer of that trivia question here shortly, but not sure if Demitri is quite ready for us yet. I get a good visual of his chest in our backstage area at the moment, so not sure if he's set or not. He looks like he's ready to go. So it is Demitri Morales we will have here right about now. Demitri, welcome back to the show. How you been this summer?
I've been really good, just working and training, and life's been good.
Just realized he has the up and down view, so I only got the little picture. So we're good on the view.
Right, it's been busy, but let's start first of all, sir. Happy birthday! Last week was your birthday. I remember it quite well because it is the same birthday as my daughter. So happy 20th to you, there, sir.
Awesome! Thank you so much.
Hopefully, you had a little bit of fun in between getting ready for your big bout coming up.
Yeah, I got to spend some time with family. It was a good birthday. I had fun. It was a good birthday. Obviously, it's different because I'm in camp, but yeah, it was good.
So talk about, obviously, this is getting ready to be your first professional fight here in an MMA octagon. Is the training different for you, or is it just kind of the same old buildup as you have been before?
It's the same. I feel like I've been training like a pro because I always knew I was going to be a pro. I've been training super hard since I started this, just because I always knew I was going to go pro at some point. So
Well, this is your 8th fight, correct? You've had 7 other fights in the amateur level, 5-2 for a record, and
yes, sir.
some big things. And your wins have come a couple different ways: 3 by submission and 2 by TKO. I got to ask you, which one do you prefer? Are you wanting to go and knock that dude out, or are you wanting to grapple a little bit and get that submission hold?
I started off my career as a grappler. That's I've always loved striking the most. I think that's the most fun, but I decided to grappling because that was my most natural art. But I love knocking people out. That's what I love doing. That's what I'm trying to do every time I enter the cage. And that's what I'm trying to do August 16th. I'm trying to put this dude's lights out, and that's what the crowd likes. That's what I like, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, this will be
Speech.
your. Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was
I
gonna
was
say
just
this
gonna.
is.
Will you make up your mind? Demitri, I will say I was at your last fight in April. It was the first time I was able to experience live MMA, and you were talking about the crowd and getting them hyped. You did that in spades as far as your fight over there at the Clearwater River Casino back in April. Talk about that experience and how loud that place got. I don't know. Could you hear the crowd during all of that, or are you just so focused in on your fight that it kind of just zones out for you?
For sure, I hear the crowd. Hearing the crowd go that crazy, it's definitely motivating. I love it. It's my favorite. I cannot explain how it feels. I wish everyone in the world could feel that feeling because it's amazing. It's so pure. Um, it gets me going. It's I love getting the crowd going. My favorite thing is when I leave that cage and people are telling me how good my fight was, how much they enjoyed it, and seeing the excitement and joy on their faces. That's I'm an entertainer. I love entertaining, and it's the best feeling in the world. The crowd is definitely motivating every fight.
And we had second row seats. I got Randy second row seats, so he had the experience.
Nice.
I was up bouncing around, but you fought in Lewiston at the casino there. You've also fought at Spokane back in February, where you took on Ethan Child. That one was
Yes, sir.
also indoors. But this fight next week is an outdoor fight. What do you think is going to happen scenario wise? Because that sound bounces off the walls. What's it going to be like to fight outside?
I'm not sure. I've been to these fights before, but I've never fought outside. It's a good environment. I like it a lot. I'm excited. It's gonna be pretty cool. The cage is bigger, which that's about the only thing I think is gonna be different. The cage is bigger. That helps me. I'm a small guy. I like to move a lot. Sorry, there's my roommates are upstairs and they're
Good.
kind of loud. Um, but I like to move a lot in a big cage, and I think it's gonna help me. It's gonna benefit me. That's the only difference I think. I don't think it's gonna matter other than that.
Has that changed any of your training? Are you sparring outside or anything just to kind of get used to that, or is it still
Um,
just normal?
I've done a couple of track workouts in the heat, so I do track workouts every weekend. And I waited. Me and my trainer have done a couple in the heat, like around noonish, the hottest it gets. That's the only thing we really changed, just in case it is really hot out. I'll be ready for that and prepared.
Well, you were ranked right now 10th out of 111th in the Pac Northwest amateur featherweights, and also 55th out of almost 600 in the U.S. amateur. This being your first pro fight, taking on a gentleman by the name of Matt Main. And Matt right now is ranked 41st in the featherweights here in Pro West. 0-4. Do you know much about Matthew Main at all?
I don't know much about him. Um, I think he likes taking people down and choking them out. That's not gonna happen with me. You're not gonna grapple me. So I'm really not worried much about it. I'm okay with where the fight goes. I have one thing in mind, and that's get the finish. I want to finish this guy from a pro debut and put a stamp on it. Let everyone know that I'm here to take over and rise as a
You
pro.
You say put a stamp on it, and here, and I don't know if you know this, but I went back and did a little research on Mr. Maine. Out of his 4 professional fights, none of them have went past 1 minute and 5 seconds. All of them with an L for him. Can we expect a quick taking care of business in and out of the ring with you?
Yes, you can. I plan on making it quick and easy. Whether it's
Love
submission
it.
or knockout, I plan on finishing this guy.
So you were just in the octagon or the cage, I guess, just a couple months ago. What have you really been working on since we last saw you in a fight?
I've been working on lots of footwork. In that last fight, I got caught up. I got caught backing up too much. My wrestling wasn't what I wanted it to be, so I've been working on that. I have some of the best wrestling teammates on my team, and that helps a lot. I have Drake Randall and Melvin Joy, and they've helped me grow in wrestling a lot. And just me working on my footwork, making sure I don't get pinned up against a cage. That's what I've really been working on, and it'll show in this fight.
Well, with that being said, you kind of lead right into my next question, and I was going to ask you is out of all the guys you work with, Martial Arts America, you said you have a track person you do stuff outside with, but who do you enjoy working out with and sparring with the most?
I love my whole team. I train with Drake Randall the most. He's my main training partner, and I couldn't ask for a better training partner. He's a all-American wrestler. His striking is super good. He's a tough dude. He's he's helped me so much in my career, and I'm very thankful for him. But also, there's Brian McIlroy, who's helped me so much. I love my whole team.
Mhm.
Um, I love training with all of them. I couldn't really pick one, but Drake Randall is my main training partner.
You brought up Brian, and he's been on our show a couple times as well. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, and one of the times we had him on the show, was his transition from being an amateur to a pro, and kind of the backstage work that you have to do as far as selling yourself and merchandise and all of that.
Yeah.
What have you been able to do, and how can we support you in that effort by
Yeah.
leading people in the right direction to kind of help you out that way?
Yeah. Well, I'm taking my sponsors a little bit more serious now. I'm accepting more sponsors. I'm selling merch. So every about month before my fight, I sell merch, and that helps me a lot. I have a awesome mom who helps me with all that. She
Mhm.
gets all the people for everything I need. She makes the merch. I have well, she doesn't make the merch. She helps me find the people for merch. I have Caleb by Design make my merch, so thank you to her for doing that. But like I said, my mom, she's helped me so much, and yeah, I've just been selling merch, doing sponsors. That's about it.
Eventually, we might end up. What do you think, Randy? On a thigh of the
Put our logo
shorts, we
on
get
there.
an R&R Sports Report on the
Might
bottom.
have to.
That'd be awesome. That'd look good.
Might have to. And I was it was honor enough to meet your mom right before that fight. I do have to kind of bring her up a little bit. We talked about it after that fight. I almost had more fun watching her
Yeah.
during your fight as I did watching your fight as she was going through all the nerves and stuff. But just kind of quickly talk about how important it is to have somebody like your mom back you up like that, and how close your family is with all of this and helping you out through
Yeah.
your entire venture here.
It's very important. I'm super thankful for that. I mean, my whole family supports me so much. My mom's my biggest supporter. She's, like you said, she's a nervous wreck throughout my whole fight.
Mhm.
I mean, what mom would want to see their kid get in a fist fight? I don't think any mom would like that. But I told her since I was 5 years old I was going to do it. So she's had all this time to prepare. I don't think that helps, but that's just what I say. But some people, their family don't support them. Not everyone has a support, so I'm very thankful for it, and it motivates me a lot.
You have a large group that follows you. Most all of your sponsors are there the entire time. Shout out a few of your sponsors. I know Willie Pole Barn is one of your
Yeah,
major sponsors, but how about some of your other sponsors that take care of you?
yeah. Shout out to Willie Pole Barnes, Granite Works. There's what's there's Carson Brown's Bullet Gun Company. There's Hell's Canyon Transport, Brandon LaFavor. There's One Stop. They're a new sponsor. Thank you to them. I have a lot of sponsors. there's so many to remember. But yeah, shout out to all you guys. You guys helped me so much. I'm very thankful for you guys.
Well, this is your first professional fight, and it kind of leads into, and you just said it a second ago. You were 5 years old when you told your mom what you were doing. I want you to go back 5 years and just think about, could you imagine yourself at age 20 going in for your first professional bout 5 years ago? I mean, that's a quite a young age to make a professional debut.
Yeah. Yes and no. Like I always told myself it's gonna happen. I told everyone it was gonna happen. But at the same time, it's hard to put it into reality, I guess. It was always a dream. I knew it was gonna happen, but at the same time, it's happening now, and I still haven't let it sink in. It's a yes and no, I guess.
Mhm.
That's a hard question.
One of the things I've always admired about you from the couple times that we've had you on the show and then watching you back in April is your confidence and your determination. You talked about wanting this since you were 5. Like you said, you never know where things are going to go. So Robert went backwards 5 years. I want to go forward 5 years. Do you have any predictions of where your career might be in 5 years if you can continue down this trajectory that you're going on?
I like that question. Yeah, I think I know I'll be in the UFC. I know it's gonna happen. It's destined to happen. It's all up to me. I got to put the hard work in. I got the people around me. I got the coach to back me up. I got the team to back me up. I got the supporters, and it's all up to me to just work hard. I know I have the talent and skills to do it, and I know
Love
I'm
it.
going to do it. I just got to work hard, and I will be in the UFC in 5 years.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Absolutely love it.
Let's talk a little bit about the rest of the conquest. Any of the other Martial Arts America guys going up and participating? I know the card has been kind of quiet. They have not promoted or put out who's fighting who much in advertisement.
Yeah. So we have Drake Randall going up fighting. He's a 145 pro on our team. He will be fighting, and there's Melvin Joy, a 170er amateur on our team. Those two will be going up to me, and us three will be fighting on that card.
Love it.
Love it.
Well, Demitri, I know Hagen will be up there supporting you. I won't be able to make it, but I know Robert will update us and we'll post it on the page as well. And I'm sure your mom will have videos and stuff, and it'll go all over Facebook. But wish you the best of luck next week.
Thank you, guys.
Let you get back to your training. Once again, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
Thank
and you know, what do we got? 8 o'clock workout tonight. So don't overdo it, because you're still working on the side too, besides doing training too. So that's got to take a toll on you. So, but we appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you,
Demitri. And again, happy birthday.
Demitri Morales. He's such a great kid. We obviously we brought it up in the interview, the confidence that he gives out. Again, he just turned 20 years old, and he has that kind of demeanor to him that you love to see, especially in that avenue with mixed martial arts and what you have to do. And like he said, he's going out there and getting in fist fights, and he's ready to do it. And it's so cool to see somebody that went at 5 years old. You hear these stories all the time in movies and stuff. Oh, I knew I was going to do it at 5. I believe it with that kid. That is exactly what he had told his mom when he was 5, and now he's living his dream. It's just awesome to see.
Yeah, looking forward to making this pro battle. And like I said, I think I'm more excited for him also, and Randall, but it's going to be a different environment for me, knowing that this is an outside bout. So this is going to be kind of crazy to be outside watching this.
And I know Robert Taylor was making fun of me. I guess it's not an octagon for other MMA stuff. I didn't count the sides when I went to the event in April, but I'm with Demitri. Within 5 years, he will be in that octagon, and Robert Taylor will be able to watch him do his thing. I'm very, very excited to see where he goes. And Drake Randall's another one who's been so much fun to watch. We have not had him yet on the show, but we'll have to get that fixed, as he has been a local talent that continues to do great things. It's that whole place. Martial Arts America has been absolutely fantastic.
And they've already announced their next bout. We did talk about this. It happens to fall on senior night at LCSC volleyball. And so I'm hoping to purchase my tickets. And then as soon as senior night's over, last volleyball, the last spike happens, I'm driving out to the casino to watch.
We'll
the
see if
fight.
I will get a chance to do. Obviously, I have some extra stuff I have to do after those things get done. Volleyball's starting to get in the way of other things, but that's okay. That's okay.
Hey, we start that next week. Next Friday, Saturday. We are.
My written preview for the volleyball team will be out next week. We'll talk about it more on the show as well next week. Maybe we'll be able to get the coach on. We were hoping to get her on today, but they're out doing their last little team excursion this week, so we were unable to get it. And Robert Taylor is just bashing you for your Jaguars ranking. We'll get into that and more. But we had some fun. We talked some great stuff with Demitri. Now let's get into the wild news. And the Pac-12 is officially dead at this point. There's 4 teams left. The Pac-12 had 12 teams like a year ago. Now all of a sudden, they thought they were going to be able to survive with USC and UCLA already announcing that they were parting ways and going to the Big Ten. Then Colorado announced they were going to the Big 12, and you're like, well, that kind of sucks. It puts them down to 9. What are they going to do? We talked about it last week, and in a blink of an eye, everyone's gone. It's what are we down to? California, Oregon State, Stanford, and Washington State. That'll be it next year. It's wild what is happening. We see conferences change or teams move conferences all the time. And while I was absolutely stunned and I hate all of this for college sports, we shouldn't be too surprised. It was just so surprising that a conference that's been around for over 100 years is going to be kaput at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that. And yeah, I overheard Colin Cowherd talk about it earlier this week, and he had kind of been predicting it for the last 5 years. But it has boiled down to it's who's going to get the money deal. That's the big thing.
It's all money.
It's all about money, and I hate saying that because the notoriety of what the Pac-8, the Pac-10, Pac-12 has been, like you said, over 100 years. And so, I mean, you've got a major football bowl game, the Rose Bowl, and where it has been. It is just crazy to fathom that everything has boiled down to money. You look at Notre Dame and getting their own single money deal with NBC to, Pac-12 was trying to get a deal with Apple done, but now with this whole thing over the last about 4 or 5 days, it was a big topic around the putting green as we were warming up for the Special Olympics tournament. There was people all around talking about everything happening and where are these teams going to go, especially Cal, who was so big in the early 20s with their football program, and we talk a little bit about USC and where they were in the 2000s. It's that the depth of where these teams have been and where this conference has gone and the rivalries. They're still planning on playing. The Civil War is still going to happen. They've said that they still plan on playing the Apple Cup. They still plan on playing a few of these games, but it's all about these money. And the big thing we talked about, it was when Idaho, where did Idaho go? Was it Florida State or Florida where they went and Idaho got paid $1 million just to go and play the game?
I think it's Florida.
So a loss is still a win-win for Idaho, because they're given that money. And unfortunately, the almighty dollar has changed the landscape of what, NCAA football has become.
And it's all football dollars. Obviously, that is the highest revenue get for most of these teams. Basketball for some of these colleges are the bigger draw. But for the most part, the conferences are focused in on football. For a while, like the ACC more focused on basketball. They are now trying to change course a little bit as football, again, it reigns supreme and on all of sports, and we can't deny it. But just kind of to show where things are now. So Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington are all going to go to the Big Ten, which is still going to be the Big Ten, even though they're going to have 18 teams as of right now. They could add more, but that's where they're at going into 2024. Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah are all going to go to the Big 12, which will have 16 teams in 2024. And Eric will know off the top of his head, but I'm pretty sure the SEC also right now with 16 teams, right? Is that what they're going to once they get Oklahoma and Texas in next year? So we've been talking about the Power 5. It's the Power 3 from here on out. It's the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12. The Pac-12 is basically dead. The ACC is doing everything they can just to kind of stay relevant. As Eric said in the comments, they're looking at Cal and Stanford, which really just kind of leaves Oregon State and Wazoo in the weeds, which, again, money is everything, even in college athletics. Doesn't matter. You don't care about being fair. It's about how much money you can bring to the college. But Oregon State and Washington State were very much the bottom of the barrel as far as financials go for the Pac-12. So much that there was reports out there that the Pac-12 president, when they first contacted the Big 12 president after their whole TV deals did not pan out the way they were expecting, basically went, will you please take our entire conference except for Oregon State and Washington State? You don't need them because they suck. It's just wild to me what's happening.
No, and it's not just that too. It's the big thing that I've heard, and it does make a little bit of sense, is the Pac-12 has always been that late afternoon game. And you think all of these games, by 9:00 on Saturday morning Pacific time for us, we're starting to see our first swipe of ACC games and SEC games starting. Now, with these teams that are going to be mixing it up with the Big 12 and the Big 10 and all that, and you're going to see teams like Stanford, USC, UCLA starting at 9 a.m. on the East Coast. And you're going to see some of these major teams like a Wisconsin, like a Penn State, making those trips out west on a regular basis. So, they've always said especially over the last few years now, that cable TV and dish networks and all of that stuff has televised these games, is now the West Coast is going to start seeing that influx of the East Coast games, because there's not a lot of intertwining games. I mean, the only ones you really see are the afternoon ones, if anything, if they mesh together in the Midwest. That's where it's at.
Especially for the Big 10, I think this is huge as far as their TV stuff goes on, because they always have that first game of the day, like you said, about 9 a.m. Pacific time. The wake up with the Big 10 or whatever Fox likes to call it, or whatever that thing was called. And now you're going to be able to have games throughout the day, and then you still have what used to be the Pac-12 After Dark games. So you're going to have Big 10 games all day long on whatever TV partner that they are with. So that's great for their TV partnership. But it is just, to me, it boggles my mind that what I have always said that we needed in college football was to regionalize it more, get the conferences more regionalized, so it's just easier travel on these kids, and you get these great rivalries, and then you get big noon kickoff. Thank you, whatever. I don't care about the Big 10, and I usually am not watching those games, but that's what I've always thought, is to regionalize the conferences. Then that gives you the reason to have these the big tournament at the end of the year where everyone gets to play each other. It's cool that the bowl games happen, all of that. They went in the exact opposite direction. As you said, like Penn State, there's talk now that schools like Penn State or Northwestern or Ohio State are going to have West Coast trips. Like they're just going to go to the West Coast for 2 weeks. If that's going to be I mean, obviously, college athletics at that level do not care about scholarships or like what they're doing in the classroom. It's not like what the NAIA does, where we applaud in classroom, not just on the field or on the court. Obviously, NCAA just does not care about that. It's how much money you can bring in. But the thing I worry about is, sure, football can afford this, and they play once a week. Basketball kind of can afford this because they bring in some good money. But what about the tennis teams? What about the volleyball teams? They have to make these ridiculous trips now, too. and they don't really have that kind of funding to get on a plane every week. So USC is just going to spend 7 road trips over to the Midwest, and USC is going to have to fit that bill. And then all you're going to hear from these, especially the West Coast schools, is, oh man, we need more money because we can't afford things. Let's just ignore the fact that we continue to build all these fantastic new buildings with all the money that we're getting. But man, we're just we can't afford these sports, and I'm really worried that these other sports are going to start dying in these bigger conferences.
Well, here's my biggest takeaway from this, and you and I, we both work in the idea and seeing high school sports and high school stuff. And I'm going to throw this out here because we know the nightmare that happens at the high school level with scheduling. Mm-hmm. Now let's throw in 130 teams in Division 1A. Who would want to design the schedule? Are you going to throw all the names in there and we're going to just random them out? How is that going to look? I mean, we're looking at 130 teams stretched across the United States that are currently right now that are part of Division 1A from the Pac-12, Big Ten, all that. How is it? It's going to be a scheduling nightmare to see who's going to play who.
It's going to be an easier scheduling nightmare now that they're all in the same conferences. Conference play is easy to figure out. You stretch out conference play. It's the same with high school sports. It's not that hard to come up with a schedule because you don't have to play everybody. You don't have to play all these 130 teams. The bigger the conferences are, the more games you're going to have in conference. The bigger issue is how are you going to make it fair in, say, the Big Ten that has 18 teams? Like, are you only going to have 8 conference games and you just play, like, you just make it 2 divisions and you only play in your division and then you have some non-conference games? Are you going to play 10? Is your entire schedule going to be conference games at this point? That is going to be the more interesting part, is how conferences are going to set up the way things work.
I was going to say, do we see any of the 130?
Stop it with the Super League with the top 70 or 80 teams. You're only cutting out 40 or 50 teams.
So
and by the way,
that kind of leads me.
Hold on. The only way a Super League works is if they do what the NCAA could never do and get one person in charge. I think it was Colin Cowherd today who was talking to Urban Meyer, who nailed it perfectly. It's like MMA took over for boxing as far as combat sports. Why? Because Dana White was in charge. And he said, we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. NCAA doesn't have that. NCAA has a couple of conferences just trying to eat each other and teams going to the highest bidder. So the only way a Super League works is if you have one person in charge.
So with that number, though, that he threw up there, 70 to 80, is a big question mark to me. Do we see some of those 130 teams go down to FCS or lower and get out of the FBS? Do we see them?
No, because that's not where the money's at.
See them shrink it.
Like Idaho left the FBS not because they wanted to, but because no conference wanted them. Like they were. I still think they're too big of a school to really be in Division II, but they really weren't big enough to compete at that higher level. They were there for a little bit, but then their conference disappeared, or the Sun Belt, I'm pretty sure, is gone, and they weren't big enough for the WAC, and so then they moved back down to where they are. I don't think teams are going to want to drop down a level. Their whole goal is to go up a level. Like Washington State is not going, we're really excited to find a way to get into the Mountain West. They're still trying to figure out how to save the Pac-12 and make the Pac-12 seem legit, which is now nearly impossible when you only have 4 teams remaining. You can bring in 8 random-ass teams, but you're just going to be like a shell of your former selves, and no one's going to care. Right?
Yeah, 100%. I think, but what hurt? I think maybe it's the planning side of me, and I struggle with the idea of how is all of this going to shape out in the next 2 years. I know a lot of this has to happen in 2024, but it's going to be weird how they
mess.
design the map. Do
Yeah.
they design a map? Do they design? Are you going to be strictly kind of like SEC does their north and south, kind of like what Pac-12 did before their lines
Mhm.
were
Yeah.
lines were a little shaded, but it's that the main goal
Hell,
for this team.
At this point, if I am the Big Ten, I go find out 2 more teams. I make it 20 teams. I have 5 divisions, and I have a conference semifinals and finals at this point. Just if you're going to go way over the top with it, go way over the top. Don't stop at 18.
So
weaklings.
I'm gonna say this, and I know we're getting close on time. We've got to move on, but I know this is your favorite time of year to think about this, but what happens with bowl season? What happens with championship play? How do we decide a champions? Do we finally extend?
No,
to
they're extending
8
the
teams?
tournament.
Are we going to extend it a little bit bigger to 16 now that
The
everything
tournament's
is
going to grow, and then the playoffs are going to grow, and bowl games will still be around just for the fact that people want money. Again, I've been saying they needed less bowl games. That's never going to happen. Why? Because all these colleges want that bowl money, and as long as somebody will sponsor it, they will play a game. And then you have all these different playoffs, the big playoffs, and then they'll come up with stuff. And I'm sure in 10 years we'll have basically the NIT level of a tournament for college football, because why not? Because it'll probably bring in more money, and that's all that matters. So we will see how things go with the Pac-12. We'll talk more college football as things go on. I was so bummed with that news, just especially for the fact that I just bought the college football Bible, the Phil Steele big. I can't call it a magazine, but you can't call it a book. But I mean, it's like 300 and some pages of fantastic college football information, and I was getting myself psyched, and then this news just kind of killed me again for college football, and I'm kind of down on it.
So one last thing before we jump out of NCAA football, and I just saw this today. Don't know when it happened, but I want your opinion. Does he have a winning season? But did you see who the new head coach of University of Alabama, Birmingham, or UAB Blazers is?
Yeah, only because you put it in the notes. Do I know?
Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer. Do you think Trent Dilfer comes away with a winning season, as he's only coached high school football?
You talk about your favorite quarterback of all time. I'll be right.
I know where I really know where he is going with this. Super Bowl winning coach Trent Dilfer, and so let's see what he brings out of his case here.
I'm going to see what their schedule is. I'm going to see what Phil Steele says about your famous Blazers over here.
Trent Dilfer played in the Super Bowl with the Ravens.
Did he complete 5 passes in that Super Bowl?
I don't remember how many passes he had completed.
Not many.
All I remember.
Table of contents in this thing, Phil. There it is. Hold on. UAB, page 216. Hold on. Please hold. Do you know what conference the UAB is in, by the way?
AAC.
There you go.
The American. That I do know.
So they play North Carolina A&T. They play Georgia Southern. They played Georgia this year at Georgia. That's a loss. They went 7-6 last year. They only return 3 offensive starters and 4 defensive starters. How does that make you feel with Trent Dilfer taking over the reins of this team?
He's clearing house. He's channeling his inner Coach Prime.
Phil Steele has them finishing 10th out of 14 teams of the AAC.
It'll be interesting. We'll see. We see where it goes.
I had not got that far in my Bible book yet. So let's get into it. Move to the pro level again. For the next 4 weeks, we will break down 2 different divisions in the NFL and give you our locked in predictions. There are shows out there that are too afraid to lock in their predictions until the week before the season gets going. Not us. we will make our horrible decisions weeks in advance, and we will stick to them no matter what happens. It's the North this week, then the South, then the East, then the West, as the old Direction song composed. So let's start with the AFC North, your division, the Baltimore Ravens, who will finish second once again. Here, we will talk about it right here. Last year, Cincinnati went 12-4, Baltimore 10-7, Pittsburgh, who just refuses to finish under 500, 9-8, and Cleveland 7-10.
Correct.
We will get to the power rankings here in one second. Once we get to our predictions, I will bring that up for you, Robert. I know he's been just chewing at the bit for a day, a full day since I posted that.
Between Jags fans of Trevin, and also hearing from the Raiders fan, 2 Raiders fans, let me have it about where they're finished up.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
All right. So first off, before we really get into the other teams, give me one player to watch coming into this season from the AFC North. Since I know your answer, and once again, Robert Hagan cannot follow directions. I'm shocked that you only gave me 32 teams on your power rankings when you sent those in. I was surprised you didn't throw in random teams because you can't follow directions to save your life. I will go first because I can follow my own directions. And I'm going to go with the former Jet because I'm very curious what he is able to do. Elijah Moore now with the Cleveland Browns. Had 37 receptions on just 65 targets. Really was a non-factor on an offense of the Jets that just had nothing going on, especially the quarterback position. 446 yards and just the 1 touchdown. Cleveland, even through all of that, gave up a second-round pick to get more. So I'm very curious what he is going to be able to do with the Browns. So he is my player to watch this season for the AFC North. And who are your 37 people that you put on this list?
It's not going to be 37, but I think the big thing is that Cincinnati lost some big names in the defensive backfield and overall. Eli Apple, Trey Flowers, and those. So I think the defense is the big place. And give me the first round pick from Clemson, Miles Murphy. What is Miles Murphy going to do for this team? The big edge rusher. I think that's where the big part of this is. It's what is he going to do as a rookie for this ball club? You look at who he's going to be playing next to. You've got Sam Hubbard just in front of him, but Trey Hendrickson on the other side. And Hendrickson is a big dude. He really went after Lamar all year. I think this is going to be a huge asset for the Cincinnati Bengals this year after losing so many people.
That's fair. All right, let's get into the team-by-team breakdown. We'll go through some of the offseason moves that they did, kind of talk about what we expect from each of these teams.
I love we're starting out with Baltimore.
It's alphabetical order, man. It's alphabetical order. I'm a simple man. But for the Baltimore Ravens, they, of course, added a lot of weapons for Lamar Jackson. Odell Beckham Jr., Nelson Aguilar, Laquell Treadwell, good cornerback, and Rock Ya-Sin. But they do lose Kenyon Drake, who's an okay running back for them. Juwan James was a pretty good offensive lineman for you. So was Ben Powers. A lot lost on defense. Calais Campbell, Marcus Peters, Brent Urban. I forgot Jason Pierre-Paul was still in the league because I feel like he's 97 years old. But of course, Zay Flowers, a first-round pick, another wide receiver, Trenton Simpson, you get in the 3rd round, Tavius Robinson in the 4th. Just overall thoughts on the roster changes for your Ravens.
So you missed one big one besides, losing Kenyon Drake. The big one was we did pick up Melvin Gordon. I really don't think
I didn't miss Melvin Gordon.
I don't think they're going to keep all 4 running backs on the roster. Depending on what happens with J.K. Dobbins, as he's out, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and Melvin. So it'll be interesting. But new life with Lamar having a guaranteed contract, I think that helps out. You said the defense and the big thing, Marcus Peters. Wasn't a huge fan of Marcus Peters. I was kind of glad to see him go. was a huge Calais Campbell fan. That's going to mix things up, but we still have Michael Pierce in there, away, Raquan Smith, Patrick Queen, still part of that big defense, and then have Rocky Janssen. Yes, he's questionable right now, but he is going to be a difference maker in that defensive backfield for the Ravens this year.
Yeah, obviously the big thing for Baltimore, yes, they get the weapons around Lamar Jackson, is his health. Obviously, he was unable to finish the season healthy. Just the way he plays football, you expect injuries to happen. See if they change things up a little bit to try to keep him upright a bit more. Again, with those weapons, maybe try to keep him in the pocket more often and let that hit his legs be a threat here and there instead of being his go-to offense. Try to keep him a little bit more healthy. Even though I did mention a lot of names that they lost on defense, Baltimore has kind of become what Pittsburgh has always been known for. That defense is always going to be good. Until they show me otherwise, when I come into a season, I just expect this defense to be good. They will rotate pieces around and be just fine. While I do like to make fun of you on this show about your Ravens and how they're going to finish behind my New York Jets, and the power ranking showed it on our Sports Report Facebook page. Just go check that out. See the Jets above the Ravens. It's so great. I do think they're going to be a very solid team, very much in the playoff picture. However, we're going to ask this for all 32 teams. The Baltimore Ravens will win the division if
he's got to stay healthy, and that's the big thing. And he has to get the ball out to his new playmakers. The other thing, you have to win close games. Out of the 7 losses Baltimore had, 5 of them were 4 points or less. You have to win the close games. Baltimore did not do that last year.
See, I was going to do the cool, like we had the AFC North preview below us. I was going to put our answers on here, and then on our show notes, Robert put like paragraphs for every team.
I had to write down my thoughts after the man. I'm getting
next
old.
Next week, give me a headline, all right? But yes, I totally get it. That's why we have 20 pages of notes. Half the time we don't even bring them up, but we just jot them on there so we don't forget. I'm right there with you. Baltimore wins the division if the offensive weapons they brought in all deliver and Lamar Jackson stays healthy. I have no doubt in the defense, but I don't think the defense will be enough to win them that division. This division is tough to kind of predict. Both of the North divisions are difficult.
Listen, as much as Robert Taylor's going to tell us that the AFC West is the division, it will be the
Robert
AFC
Taylor would
North.
not.
It's going to be
the AFC West has the best team. It's not the deepest division. Any of these 4 teams could win this division, and at the end of the day, I wouldn't be super shocked. Like Cleveland and Pittsburgh would be kind of shocking, but in a way I can see it. There's shocking teams in the AFC West. If it's not the Chiefs this year winning the division, I would be shocked. All right, move on to the next team. Go a little bit quicker through these now that we've gotten through your favorite team, and you've been able to
my Ravens. My Ravens right there.
I liked your little dance. It was great.
My little dance.
Cincinnati Bengals.
I gotta show off all the
right.
the new garb.
Cincinnati
back there,
Bengals, defending division champions. Were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Still really good team. Joe Burrow is banged up at the moment. We're still waiting to see him get paid and see if he will miss a couple of weeks in the regular season or not. Big additions for them. Offensive tackle Orlando Brown, though if you ask Robert Taylor, that's not a big addition. That's a big subtraction for their team. Cornerback Sidney Jones and safety Nick Scott all joined the Bengals. They do lose Samaje Perine, not a big hurt. Same with Hayden Hurst. One big addition by subtraction was getting rid of cornerback Eli Apple, in my estimation. I've never been a big fan of him, but they do lose a couple of big safeties of Jesse Bates and Trey Flowers. Went defensive for the most part at the top of their NFL draft. So just real quick, with all of these changes for the Bengals, are they still the favorite in the division? I know you don't want to pick them because you're a Ravens fan, but on paper, are they still the favorite?
On paper, I think they are, but it boils down to, like you said, it's going to boil down to protection, and that player I want you guys to all watch him, and is Miles Murphy going to be that guy that is going to really make that defensive shine? So I think that paper wise, yes, I think they are probably still the better team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Obviously, Burrow is not at Mahomes level, but he is in that conversation for the second best quarterback in the league. They continue to have great weapons around him. That wide receiver core is absolutely fantastic. Defense continues to try to become a more elite team for the Bengals, but they're not quite there yet. The Cincinnati Bengals will win the AFC North, basically, if Joe Burrow's injury is not too serious. I think if he misses a couple of weeks, the beginning of their schedule is not terrible. So I think they can get away with him missing a few weeks and still go on a run to make the playoffs. But if it's one of those nagging injuries where he misses a couple weeks here, he comes back, he's not playing at 100%, and then he gets injured again, then the Bengals have no chance. So they need Burrow to be 100% at least within a couple of weeks of the start of the year.
Yeah, especially with the left tackle Orlando Brown. He's now on his third team in 6 years, 3 years in Baltimore, 2 years in Kansas City. He has to stay healthy and produce on that blind side for Joe Burrow if they want to. It comes down to protection of your franchise quarterback.
Cleveland Browns get Elijah Moore, Marquise Goodwin, a couple of offensive linemen and defensive linemen. They really focused on the line, which I think is big for them. They lose some running backs in Hunt and Dearness Johnson. They lose Davion Clowney. No big deals there. I think they had a lot more additions than subtractions. To me, it's really up to Watson and what he is going to do. He obviously coming off of the suspension last year, he wasn't able to get fully back into football shape. Now he's had the full offseason. He'll have the full year. They could be an interesting contender with some of the talent that they have. But this is not a team I'm rooting for, basically because of their quarterback and what kind of a human being he is.
Yeah, and we'll see him for the first time full year. It'll be interesting to see how he produces. But for me, again, it's another defensive talk in this one is how can Myles Garrett survive, and him being that big name on that side of the defense, and with them picking up Zadarius Smith, I think that's going to be huge. Two big defensive ends just attacking quarterbacks, and so they'll be giving fits to all of the AFC North quarterbacks, I believe.
Absolutely. All right. The Cleveland Browns win the AFC North if.
Yeah, it is if Miles and Zadarius can put pressure. I think it boils down to defense and them keeping themselves in the ball games.
For me, it's if Watson returns to the level he was back in 2020 and he stays out of massage parlors. That's the only way that they can win the division. Pittsburgh Steelers get Allen Robinson. Can he finally bounce back after his rough time with the Rams? And again, they kind of focus on the offensive line, getting Isaac Sumalo, I believe is how you say that name, and Nate Herbig. They also get safety Keanu Neal, who's pretty good. They lost a lot defensively. Wormley left, Devin Bush, Miles Jack, Cameron Sutton all left, safety Terrell Edmonds as well. Broderick Jones was a big pickup in the draft in the first round. Joey Porter Jr. has the lineage of his father with Pittsburgh. See how he plays there. But what do you think of Pittsburgh coming into the year?
I think the big concerns coming out of this camp is, like you said, with some of the defense, but Najee Harris comes out from Alabama, produces the last 2 years and played 17 full games for both years, but that's starting to get him a little bit more carries. I think he needs to have a little bit of extra help in the run game. So hopefully his backup there in Pittsburgh will help take a little weight off, and that is Jaylen Warren. So it'll be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does with that.
For me, it really comes down to Kenny Pickett and what he is able to do. Obviously, a rookie last year, came in a few weeks into the season, showed signs of being a decent quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be top tier, but that's kind of how Pittsburgh has always been built, is having a pretty good quarterback, a good run game, and a fantastic defense. So that is where I go right now, is the Pittsburgh Steelers will win the AFC North if the Pickett to Pickens connection turns into a top 3 combo. It could be. Pickens is fantastic as a wide receiver. Pickett is decent enough. But if this team is going to win the division, that duo has to be dynamic and fantastic.
Yeah, for me, I think it's got to be the health of TJ Watt and what he can do for that defense too. They've got to be able to produce, along with Cameron Hayward. They have to stay healthy, and for this team to be successful.
All right, get into our division ranking predictions. I'll go first. I'm trying to update the baseball scoreboard, which we will get to in just a second. Ken, this one's really tough. I had a really difficult time placing teams, but I'm going to go with a safe setup. I'm going to go the Cincinnati Bengals once again winning the AFC North. I'll have your Baltimore Ravens finishing second, Cleveland in third, Pittsburgh in fourth, which means I do believe Pittsburgh will finally finish under 500 in the Mike Tomlin era. So that's probably a bad prediction on my part, but at some point that streak has to end.
Yeah, I think this might be the year that he does go sub 500. It could be the year that he finally decides to hang him up. So it'll be interesting. I'm with you with the 3 and 4 teams. It's Cleveland third, Pittsburgh fourth. Yes, I believe Pittsburgh gets better. I believe the connections, the roster gets a lot better. Having Allen Robinson, George Pickens there, and Najee Harris. Najee starting his third year. I think that is the big one. I am going to put Cincinnati second. Yes, I'm going to play Homer and put Baltimore first. And there's some reasons I put Baltimore first. And it's just because it boils down to, we talked about it. I know Jimmy and I have talked about it a little bit, but where Lamar only played 12 games and 7 games, he wasn't healthy. I can see a couple of them. He wasn't healthy. He was hurt. The last 3 weeks though, including the playoff week, for him not to come back and play, I think it was all about the money, and I really do. And now I think with a bigger contract, he has weapons. He spent time with Zay Flowers. I think that's going to be a great connection. We didn't even talk about Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, if not,
he's good.
He for me, I'm going to say 1B. I mean, you definitely have 1A, 1B in the tight ends in the NFL. I think the weapons are going to help in this.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Are you saying Mark Andrews is on the same level as Travis Kelce?
1A, 1B. I said
Kelce
was 1A.
1, 2. 1, 2. 1A, 1B means they're on the same level.
I think so.
That's a homer talking. That's a homer talking. All right, we are very much behind schedule. And unsurprising with the way we go. But let's go real quickly to the Major League Baseball scoreboard. A lot of games already in the books. Couple of blown saves in the 9th inning that I was keeping an eye on while we were doing the AFC North preview. But the Rays take down the Cardinals 4-2. Tigers blank the Twins 6-0. Right now, Phillies over. They won the first game of a doubleheader against the Nationals 8-4. This is how that's 8-4 was the first game. They're in the bottom of the 7th of the second game of the doubleheader. I don't have room to put doubleheaders, so that's where we're at. 4-4.
I'm just more shocked of the Houston Baltimore.
We will get to that. Miami comes away with finally a win against Cincinnati 3-2. The Marlins have really struggled. Houston was down, I believe, 6-3. Going into the 9th inning, they came all the way back to beat Baltimore 7-6. Atlanta was trailing to Pittsburgh going into the 9th inning. They scored a bunch of runs here in the last couple of minutes. They now have a lead 8-6 in the bottom of the 9th. Royals all over the Red Sox 9-3 in the bottom of the 9th. Cubs took out the Mets 3-2. The Cubs, they are on knocking on the door of a wild card spot. We'll talk about that. Guardians over the Blue Jays 1-0. That one's final. Yankees finally kind of find offense after maybe the Aaron Boone rant sparked them again. Is this the my guys are savages in the box moment for the Yankees? We'll see. They're at 4-1 in the 6th. Rockies and Brewers tied at 3, and the rest all early on going. Yeah, there you go. See? the Mark Andrews stuff. We need a drug test here on the R&R Sports Report. Real quick, let's get through some MLB stories real quick, please, because we're already behind. But the big fight between Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez, John Boy has a great breakdown of it. Apparently has nothing to do with the slide, has nothing to do with the tag that Tim Anderson applied at that moment, because it didn't look that bad to me. Apparently, Jose Ramirez had this in his mind the whole way. Tim Anderson, I guess, has been treating the young guys on the Guardians poorly. Ramirez is the veteran on that team, had to say something. Anderson took offense, dropped the gloves, and then got knocked the F out by Jose Ramirez. Just a brutal shot. But again, John Boy's breakdown of this is hilarious. Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
It's like they were saying, it was pretty much after Ramirez slid in, Anderson says, let's fight. And that he pops up, gets up, and he and I typed it in the notes, and I don't know if you got like a good laugh out of it, but Anderson goes right, and he kind of drops his left hand for defense, and Ramirez just comes over with a nice little right hook, catches him right on the jaw, and Anderson's out. I mean, how easy is that?
John Boy put it perfectly with Jose Ramirez using the short man approach of just ducking his head into the guy's body and just swinging above himself. Tim Anderson dropped the gloves and got in the boxing stance, and the umpire bailed. That was my favorite part of that whole thing, too. And then there was more that went on after the fight. Anderson gets 6 games. Ramirez gets 3. Clase, the closer for the Guardians, gets 1. The manager of both teams both get a game suspension, as does the third base coach for the Guardians. He gets a game and some fines and stuff along the way. Just a wild fight. Also, something that happened today. Don't know if you've seen this yet. But the Baltimore Orioles, I was kind of hoping to hold this off, and maybe Denny was going to pop his head in, but the end of his game may have ruined his mood. But the Orioles suspended their play-by-play broadcaster, Kevin Brown, for saying good things about the team. Have you seen this?
I've not seen this.
Okay, hold on. Listen, I'll bring this up, and then we'll talk about it more in a minute. Go down to our next news story, because I want to play this clip for you. And I want you to tell me where Kevin Brown made a mistake and he should be suspended. But the big thing, Aaron Boone gets ejected yesterday for arguing with Las Diaz. He's talked about it again on the John Boy YouTube page. Aaron Boone shows up there once a week. He says he and Laz go way back. Laz got a little personal in the argument. And I don't blame Boone. Las Diaz was complete trash, not just for the Yankees, and the Yankees lose that game, but he was absolute trash. He made Angel Hernandez, who didn't know what a strike was at all on Sunday, look fantastic. And how do the Yankees get Angel Hernandez and Las Diaz in back-to-back games? Again, not saying that's why they lost. The Yankees benefited from a few calls themselves, but those are 2 horrendous umpires that the Yankees had to deal with.
Yeah, it's priceless, and it wasn't just the call to Volpe that caught him, and then that's when he got tossed, was after the Volpe, because it was a good strike 3 on Volpe. It was the pitches prior to LeMahieu and all that, so it's just crazy to see it. But we're gonna continue to see these things until everything goes to automated and computerized.
Yeah, I don't think we'll go that far. Just Las Diaz was taking none of it either. But I love the Boone drawing the line and then doing the Las Diaz punch out afterwards. That one was fantastic. Apparently, I didn't realize it watching the game. Las Diaz never erased the line that Aaron Boone drew. I guess it stayed there the rest of the game. But here you go. This is Baltimore Orioles play-by-play broadcaster Kevin Brown. He gets suspended for these comments. You let me know where in this minute clip you would have suspended Kevin Brown. I will stop the video the moment you tell me he should be suspended, all right?
For the Orioles, Brandon Hyde has felt like this has been maybe the toughest ballpark to play in, but the Orioles have a chance to do something special today. They've already clinched at least a split in the series, winning 2 of the first 3, and they could pick up a series win behind Tyler Wells today. It's been a minute. The Orioles split a 2-gamer with the Rays in June. They had lost their last 15 series here at Tropicana Field. You have to go back to when our now colleague Brad Brock picked up the win in the series finale, June 25th, 2017, the last time the Orioles won a series here at St. Pete. Already got 3-2 at the top this year after winning 3 of 18 the previous 3 years combined. It is a stark difference, Ben, and it is not a bad Rays team. It's not like all of a sudden the Rays became slouches in the American League East. They've led this division every day but now 2, and the Orioles once again are back alone in first place. Yeah, for the Orioles, Brandon Hyde has felt like
where should he be suspended?
If anything, I think it might be that last sentence and a half or so, that there are no slouches. That
Tampa Bay is a good team.
Yeah,
that Baltimore's beating a good team.
To be a good analyst, you got to talk about both sides of both teams that is getting ready to play. And I think the only thing I can think of is Baltimore. That's what I'm saying. Baltimore's these guys are taking offense to pointing out that yes, Tampa Bay is a good team. So that's the only thing I can think of.
No, he's saying Tampa Bay is a great team and Baltimore's beating them, which makes them finally winning the Trop even more impressive. He's basically saying it's not like Baltimore's beating Tampa Bay because they suck this year. Tampa Bay's been great and Baltimore's beating them. And he got suspended. I guess he'll be back Friday. If I was him, I wouldn't want to come back. It's just horrible. Absolutely insane. By the way, as somebody that does play-by-play, I've said way worse about teams I've done play-by-play for and have not been suspended. And Brian Danner would have been fired long ago with some of the stuff I've heard him say about the Warriors at times. Real quick before we move on, Shohei Ohtani has been flirting with a possible triple crown. We've been talking about his home run pace and him obviously locking up the MVP. Would he be traded or not? Angels have completely imploded. But did you know he was really close at being in first place in all 3 Triple Crown categories?
I didn't know he was that close. That was
right now leading in home runs, 10 more than Luis Robert, who has 30. Ohtani with 40 himself. He's second in RBIs. He has 82. He has a bit of work to go as Adolis Garcia is at 89. Rafael Devers and Josh Naylor, who just went on the IL, he's been banged up. They both are at 79, and Kyle Tucker was at 77. And Ohtani is third in the American League in batting average at 308. Bo Bichette leads the way at 321. Yandy Diaz is at 315. Does Ohtani have a chance at becoming a Triple Crown winner?
Man, it's close, but I don't want to ever take anything away from this athlete. The way he has played, especially over the last few years with the home runs, having no support for a winning team, this dude's a major athlete, and I would think he's got a good chance at it. Mm-hmm. What are we down to? 50 games, I think, right at 50 games
right around
left.
There. So. And then if Eric is still around, sad news for him. Shane McClanahan unlikely to pitch in 2023. No, we haven't really gotten to our power rankings just yet. Stick around. We will have fun with sports-related draft, and we'll talk about the power rankings when we get to the NFC North. I had standing stock in here. We don't have time for it. Needless to say, Angels are going down. Cubs are going up. The rest are there. Okay. That's your big standing stock for the week. Let's get into our weekly awards. Give me your standout batter of the week.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Give me, out of that Chicago Cubs team, give me Dansby Swanson. In the 6 games, yes, he was under 300 batting average, but all 6 of his hits for extra base hits, 4 home runs, 5 runs scored, and 2 doubles in that one.
Give me Los Angeles Dodgers outfielder Mookie Betts for the week. 11 of 30, 367 batting average, 4 home runs, 3 doubles. He scored 11 times and knocked in 7 runs. My standout pitcher of the week, Andrew Heaney of those Texas Rangers that Robert poo-pooed last week. I don't think they've lost since. 2-0 in his 2 starts, 11 2/3 innings pitched, gave up 6 hits, 2 walks, struck out 15 batters, and did not allow a single run in those 2 starts.
Yeah, they are on a 7-game win streak, so yes, they have not missed yet. I'm going Homer. I'm going to go with the Mariners. Mariners have been on a tear lately. Winners of 5 straight, 8-2 over the last 10. But I'm going to go Andres Munoz, the closer for the Mariners right now, having 3 save opportunities and end up getting all 3 of them. 3 innings pitched. Yes, he did give up 1 earned run, but holding the batters to a 1.82, or excuse me, a .182 batting average. So going a little homer this week.
Yeah, that's all you do. All right, give me the MLB Power Rankings. Give me your top 5.
I'm just going to go quick. I know we're behind a little bit. I'm going to go Atlanta Braves, still number 1. They are the team to beat. Baltimore 2, Los Angeles. This is where things get a little crazy for me. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are, I think, pretty close to being interchangeable. Give me the Dodgers at 3, Texas at 4, and Tampa Bay goes back up into the top 5.
For me, I'm right there with you with the top 2. Atlanta and Baltimore, I think, have kind of spaced themselves out a little bit. Atlanta, has really spaced themselves out. Baltimore has been really, really good. Rough loss for them today against the Astros. You're still not buying into these Texas Rangers. That pitching staff that they are putting together, pretty good offense as well. Yes, the big hit of the week was Jose Ramirez. Well done by Harry Broadhurst. I don't have the monkey thing that you guys do on your show. Tampa Bay Rays, I will have at 4. Los Angeles Dodgers, I will have at 5. So we have the same 5 teams, just slightly
like I said,
order.
3 through 6, I think, is very interchangeable. As I think we can agree, Houston is that number 6 team, just out of that top 5 right now.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into it. Your sports-related draft, and again, we've already talked about the death of the Pac-12. So let's go back and do an in memoriam for this conference. And I wanted to focus on the teams. I wanted to, especially some of these teams that are leaving. So I went this week for the best individual season for a Pac-12 team. The first thing Robert Hagan sent me after I put this up, what sport? I said, any sport. And he went, crap, this is going to be hard. And it was. So let's get to it. I came up with the draft topic. So Robert Hagan, you get the first pick.
We're just going to say this. UCLA, 33 championships for basketball.
Only pick one.
Yeah. So I'm going to the 71-72 UCLA Bruins. They went 30-0. They were national champions. They averaged 94.6 points a game while allowing just 64 points a game. So winning almost by 30 every game. Bill Walton was a sophomore and just huge. 21 points a game, average there, 15 rebounds. So he's averaging a double-double every time he took the floor. And this is as a sophomore. And who wouldn't want to play for John Wooden?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could have just went with 6 different years from this era of UCLA Bruins basketball. I went with a different route. This could be a little controversial because, well, their national championship did get revoked. However, it got revoked for what is now completely allowed now. And
2 other games.
And some. Well, it was the national championship game and the Pac-10 championship game. Those were the 2 games that went away. But the 2004 USC Trojans were just different. They weren't just winning games. They were dominating games. They went 13-0. They crushed Oklahoma 55-19 in the title game, which has now been vacated. But who really cares about vacated games? It happened. The game happened. You can't change it. They don't take the title and hand it to Oklahoma. They just have to get rid of it. But they won 8 games by 30 or more points that season. And they weren't just playing some slubs. They played like 3 top 10 teams that year. Matt Leinart went on to win the Heisman Trophy. Reggie Bush finished 5th that year. Bush would go on and win next year and then have to give that one up. Again, it was all of the Reggie Bush recruitment stuff is what got Pete Carroll in trouble with the Trojans and made him bail for the NFL. But they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players on the All-American first team list. That just does not happen anymore. Yes, again, they had their championship and their Pac-10 championship vacated because of all of the recruitment stuff. Again, every team was doing it, at least the big name teams, but somebody will get butthurt or a sponsor will get butthurt and then they will leak things to the NCAA. But again, In the end, they don't end up with a actual championship anymore, but this team was insane, and they were a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and you say Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush. They were one of the two best combos to ever play this game. Reggie Bush, huge amount of yards and what they were doing. Yes, though it is controversial. They did take things out. They did end up having their whole 2005 season away. But I'm gonna go a different way, and I hate saying this name, and I'm hoping he's listening to the show tonight. I know he does sometimes, but I'm taking Kevin Nolet's Washington Huskies at number 2, the 91 Huskies, and he just messaged me and he says best team ever. I don't know about best team ever, but the 91 Huskies,
they weren't even the best team that year.
They finished second, and I think. But here's the thing.
I think Eric Watkins' Miami Hurricanes were better that year. I know this year very well because I think I've told this story before. But my family had a Sports Illustrated subscription for like a year or two, and you get all the magazines, and every so often you'd get like a VHS stuff or whatever. And I got the 1992 Year in Review Sports Illustrated VHS tape or whatever. I watched that thing so many times. So the 91-92 season was very ingrained in my head. That includes this college football season with the Huskies and the Hurricanes. And you know what? Hurricanes are better.
And you look at the AP poll for most of them; they were 1-2 the entire way through all of it. Listen, the numbers speak for themselves. 12-0 season, finished it, like I said, they did finish number 2 behind Miami, who was also 12-0. The Huskies actually averaged 41 points a game, and UW allowed just 115 total points all season. Just because, come on, Eric. Here's the thing about it. I know, but for a football team, and I'm going to have to go back and look. I know I looked at for the Huskies, but they only allowed 115 total points all season. And they even had a 3-game stretch where they had outscored their opponents 158-3. And that was unbelievable, you know. And so, yes, 2 great teams that season, but you know, Pac-12, Pac-10 at this time, it was all about this team, and it was one of the. How do I want to be polite about this? One of the most interesting teams to watch is they obliterated the Cougars that year at the Apple Cup. It was just no contest whatsoever, but they just handled everybody in that Pac-10 all year long.
All right. Once again, I came up with this topic and Robert asked me what sports. I said all sports, and I meant it. How about the 2012 Arizona Wildcats baseball team? And went 48-17 in the regular season. That doesn't stand out to you too much, but they went 10-0 in postseason play. 3-0 in regionals, won both their games in the super regionals, 5-0 in the college World Series. At that time, I forgot to look afterwards, but at that time, they were only the second team ever to go a perfect undefeated record in the postseason. The team to do it was South Carolina the year prior, and Arizona took care of them in the championship game. They took out South Carolina 5-1 and 4-1 in the championship series. So the Wildcats had a fantastic year. Baseball, or other than, I guess, Oregon State, who has had some pretty good runs in college baseball. The Pac-12, not really known for their baseball acumen. So that was absolutely fantastic by them. 6 players from that team got drafted in that June or July's draft. So pretty good team there for the Wildcats on the baseball side. All right, who you got?
So two more things on that Husky team. One of which the Huskies.
We're past the Huskies.
The Huskies only scored 3 less points to Miami. Miami had 3 more points in that and all that. But the Huskies also had one of the biggest flops ever to come out in that draft class and to play, and that was Steve Ettman. You remember Ettman there? He has to be one of the biggest busts in NFL history. I hate to bring that up, but he was.
That
He
doesn't
was, so.
help your argument, that's for sure. All right,
I
last
know.
pick. Last pick.
I got to go back basketball. John Wooden.
No!
Yes, I'm going
God.
back.
We were joking about going
I-
with a bunch of Wooden
I-
teams.
I'm going to go with 66, 67, and that's when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as he was a sophomore, played. They ended up winning the national championship again. He averaged almost 30 points a game, 15 rebounds. And again, that team averaged almost 90 points a game while holding opponents to just 63 points a game.
Team is a cheat code. That's all there was to it. Wooden had cheat codes going on in college basketball at the time. All right, my last pick. It was fun going through the research, trying to find some interesting ones to come up with. I didn't realize this team was so good. And I also didn't realize that HBO created a documentary on this team. I have to go watch this now. After, of course, I watched the first episode of Hard Knocks tonight. That is just going underway right now. But that is the 1984 USC Trojans women's basketball team. They went 29-4, and this was their second of back-to-back championships. The main star on this team, how about Cheryl Miller, the older sister of Reggie Miller, who, by the way, Reggie would tell you, Cheryl was the better basketball player of the family. She revolutionized women's basketball. If there was a WNBA at this time, she would have then moved on to the professional level and completely dominated the WNBA. But really, this team, if you go and watch the preview of this documentary, which I now want to go watch, they really revolutionized the sport of women's basketball and helped be the main catalyst for the WNBA even getting created. So really cool of this team to kind of propel women's basketball into that echelon, especially with Cheryl Miller. Cynthia Cooper was absolutely fantastic looking at her stats. They had twins Pam and Paula McGee. Again, the documentary is called Women of Troy. It was released in 2020 on HBO. So if you got an HBO Max subscription, whether it's to watch Hard Knocks or whatever else, go check that out. I will be watching it as well, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. So there you go. Those are our picks for our sports-related draft. The best individual season for a Pac-12 team. Robert went with the 71-72 UCLA Bruins men's basketball team, also the 66-67 UCLA men's basketball team, and the 1991 Washington Huskies football team. I went with a 2004 USC Trojans football team, the 2012 Arizona Wildcats baseball team, and the 1984 USC Trojans women's basketball team. Let us know in the comments below who wins this week's draft.
So you just got to put this up there and put it out there for you. It has to be me because I have 3 teams. You only have 2 teams because 2004, the 2000.
You have 2. You have the same team twice.
All right, let's jump back really quick. Anybody that has not answered, there was our trivia question prior to the show. Who was the only player to play in the Little League World Series, College World Series, MLB World Series, and Olympic team? Make sure you comment in the comments. We'll get back to that and give you the answer at the end of the show.
Yeah, so there you go. You have 2 things now. Pick things. We'll delete Robert's or Harry's comment that Robert wins because that just makes no sense.
Wait a minute. I'm already catching.
You picked the same team twice.
No, they were half. They were almost. They were 5 years apart.
And you picked a team that wasn't even the best team that year.
I picked the top team in the Pac-12.
There you go. Bam. Absolutely. So we're 1-1. We'll see what happens. We've got 40-some minutes left, or 30-some minutes left of the show. What has happened with a 2-hour show? We need multiple shows a week. That's where we got to get to. We got to quit jobs and make this legit. Before we get into the NFC North preview, Harry has brought it up. Robert Taylor earlier on in the show was talking about it as well. The NFL Power Rankings on the R&R Sports Report are back. Hagen and I did this about 2 years ago. We did it for baseball and football, and it burnt us out trying to type all this stuff up. So we did not do it last year. We did not do it for baseball this year. It was just too much for us to do that on top of school and work and all of our other play-by-play assignments and all of that. So it was too difficult for us. And I came up with the idea, because I miss doing it, of getting some help from some R&R Sports Report friends and Kennedy Eddings, who didn't realize we even existed. But we now have 8 of us doing this. It'll come up every single week, Tuesday morning, once the season starts. This was kind of our test run and also our preseason rankings, as preseason goes into full this week. So it is the 2 of us, along with Eric Watkins and Harry Broadhurst, who are in the comments right now, as well as Robert Taylor, who was here earlier, Sean Garmer, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago talking some soccer, Zach Swan, who has been on the show a couple of times. He was on one of our draft specials as well. And then, of course, Kennedy Eddings, who used to be a part of the kickoff.
Yeah. Zach even co-hosted with me one time. I think you were gone. He was on the show with me for a while. So,
yeah. So Zach has been absolutely fantastic. He is from the Boise area. We got people from Florida. We got people from California. Harry's in the Midwest. So we spread things out a bit and get some different opinions. And that is where the fun comes. Because the one thing I made sure is you guys can't see each other's rankings. I didn't want you to, because the way we used to do it on W2M is we had one sheet, and then you could tell a couple people would get on there, wait for the rest of us to do our rankings, and then just kind of pick and choose and move things here and there. I wanted no biases. I wanted no opinions to be altered by the other rankings on the sheet. So I put mine on the list first, and then as all of you guys were putting yours in, I added it to my spreadsheet. Harry asked me what other people were doing. Robert Taylor was asking me how things were looking.
I asked you, where's the spreadsheet to drop it all in?
Yeah, Robert wanted the spreadsheet. I didn't give it to you. Harry, I will bring this up. Harry does want to make a Facebook group chat where we can discuss it afterwards, where everything went. I am working on coming up with graphics. So when we talk about teams, I can bring up a graphic that shows where all of us rank them on the power rankings. That's the other really cool thing, is on Tuesday mornings, the rankings will come out. And then Tuesday night, we will be able to debate them and talk about it as well. Again, it's going to make a 2-hour show almost impossible, but we will see how things go, especially because we're going to have a lot of local stuff as well.
I've already caught guff.
Let's get to it. The Jacksonville Jaguars, sir. Oh, and the funny thing is, Eric Watkins is yelling at you for 15th. Robert Hagan did not have them 15th. He had them 14th. It was Zach who had the Jacksonville Jaguars 15th. So he's not even mad at the right person. But you did have them 14th. 30 seconds to explain yourself.
Listen, I'm so on board with what Trevor Lawrence is doing. They just have to take one step forward, be that dominant force, and I think that's what's going to happen in this upcoming few weeks. But I'm not going to bash on them because they have taken strides over the last couple of years. What I'm going to bash them about is where they have been. When we started talking about the ideas of this show years ago, you and I were both on the Jacksonville train. Let's go. This team is looking good. And then things have shifted up. Listen, this is just preseason. Nobody's played a ball game yet. We'll see a little bit of change. There'll be a lot of change within the next 3 weeks.
I will have a lot of fun with it. Zach really did have some interesting votes or rankings compared to the rest of us, which really, that's what I also liked, having the high and the low. And I didn't put who was who because I want to have some fun with it. And also, then you have to come to the show to get the revelations. He had the Steelers 8th. He was the only one in the top 8. The next highest had them at 16th.
Whoa. So Eric's comment about me partaking, maybe Zach needs really 8.
He also had the Browns 10th, but you had them 11th, so it wasn't too crazy. Harry had the Browns 27th. So that was a big difference. 10 to 27 was a wide range. The Tennessee Titans was an interesting one. Robert Taylor had them 13th. Nobody else had them in the top. Kennedy had them 20th. Nobody else in the top 20. Zach had them 29th. Harry and Eric both had them 25th. A couple other ones that are really jumping out to me. How about the Chicago Bears? High of 17 with you. You had them highest at 17th. Harry had the Bears 30th. That's another big swing. But Robert Hagan, you were the only human being out of the 8 of us
Really?
who put the New York Jets in your top 5. So I appreciate you there. It was not me. Anybody that thought I put the Jets top 5, I did not. I
I'm on
put
board
them
with that
7th.
defense.
So I was right about where we had it average-wise.
I was highly impressed watching them play against the Ravens last year. That defense is going to be stellar, and it's just going to get better. And now you've got a guy that is going to benefit from a strong defense, and that's Aaron Rodgers. I think it's going to be unbelievable. I thought you were going to bash me for probably having the Ravens at the highest point. I think I'm probably the highest point that had them at number 7.
No, you had him at 7. Robert Taylor and Kennedy had him at 8. Sean and I had him 9. Eric was 10. So we were all right there. So your Ravens take was very, very close. But we'll talk more about those teams as we go, and we'll find a way to do it in a segment. And we may have to go for 2 or 3 hour show at this point with the stuff that we're adding. We have 30 minutes left of the show, and we have so much to talk about. So let's move on here to the NFC North preview. We will bring back up the power rankings as we go along, kind of talk about where we put these 4 teams, But real quick, last year Minnesota won the division 13-4. Detroit went 9-8, knocking out Green Bay from playoff consideration in that last week. Green Bay goes 8-9, and Chicago really struggled 3-14. Real quick, player to watch for me. How about safety Jaquan Brisker for the Chicago Bears? Had a pretty decent year last year. Started in 15 games, just had the 1 interception. He had 4 sacks, which somehow led the team. That's how bad Chicago was. But I saw a stat where he was tackling people at like a 96% rate. Like, people are not getting away from Brisker when he gets your hands on you. I saw a comparison of a Jamal Adams, who was really good with the Jets, struggled once he got to Seattle, could really help bolster a defense in Chicago that really, really needs it. Who is your player to watch?
I follow a little bit of Minnesota just because it's my nephew's team, and so we like to talk a little bit back and forth. I'm going to go with Daniel Hunter, the defensive end for the Vikings. Yes, he's been dealing with some contract issues. He did get a contract signed, $17 million this year, but the dude had 10.5 sacks last year, 22 hits on the quarterback, 65 tackles. 46 of them were solo tackles. He's a big part of this defense, and I think watch him now that he's got a contract done, and he has said he wants to stay in Minnesota his career. So I think this is a proving ground this year to get a big contract next year.
All right, let's go team by team, alphabetical order, of course. Chicago Bears added DJ Moore, which could be a big help. Also, Robert Tonyan, who was the former tight end for the Green Bay Packers, added some defensive help. Tremaine Edmonds could be a good linebacker for them. DeMarcus Walker on the line as well. They do lose David Montgomery. I don't think that's going to be a big loss for them. Couple of pieces on the line as well. They went offensive line in Darnell Wright with the first pick, defensive line with their second pick, and Jervin Dexter Sr. So what do you think of the Chicago Bears? You were highest on our power rankings, putting them 17th.
I think it's a breakout year for Justin Fields. I think he gets better. He does. I'm just worried about some of his targets. I think, yes, he's got Chase Claypool. He's got DJ Moore now. I think that's going to open things up, but he's still going to get his runs in there. I think he's going to be up there, but I don't think it's enough to push this team over the edge.
Yeah, a lot of us weren't far from you. Eric had him 19th. I had him 20th. Taylor, Sean, and Zach all had him 21. It was Harry who was kind of the outlier all the way down to 30. And I get it. You have to have the confidence in Justin Fields. And I think Harry, as he says right here, I don't think he really does. I don't know if I really believe in him either. I really think it's more the defense is going to improve a bit. The division is really, really interesting right now. They have to be able to take a step forward. I don't think they're one of the worst 5 teams in the league talent-wise. We'll see what they're able to do on the field. But it's an interesting one because, once again, we answered this question for every single team in our previews. But the Chicago Bears will win the NFC North if what?
If the weapons help out Justin Fields. That's the biggest part. The weapons have to be there. The run game has to be there. they've got to have the entire team doing it and not everybody riding on Justin Fields' back.
For me, it's basically Justin Fields has to have a complete breakout season. Like, we have slight confidence that he can take a step forward. He has to go far more than one step forward. He has to come out and be that elite player. Kind of a not quite Patrick Mahomes jump, but why am I blanking on the Eagles quarterback right now?
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts. Every time it popped into my head, it was Justin Fields in my head. But Hurts took that big step for the Eagles. They were able to become a much stronger team. Fields would really have to take that kind of a step forward. I don't expect it to happen, but if they're going to win the division, that's what's going to have to happen. We move to the Detroit Lions. They get David Montgomery from the Chicago Bears, who will take over for Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, who took off. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, they got in the first round, will be part of that two-headed monster for Detroit. Marvin Jones comes in for the to the wide receiver core. They get Sutton and Mosley, the cornerback position, but they do lose. I can never say this guy's name. Jeff Okudah.
I think that, man.
And Will Harris. So a couple of interchangeable parts for Detroit. They are kind of the prediction darling right now in the NFC North. I'm slightly there, but I'm not fully all the way in. Are you?
I listen. He's a coach, Dan Campbell. The players want to play for him. You could tell at the end of the season last year, they were playing with a whole heart out all the time, and I think that gentleman deserved a nod at Coach of the Year and all that. It all boils down. It all boils down.
I'm going to guess that is my pronunciation,
Dan
not my
Campbell.
prediction. Real quick on our power rankings, Harry and Robert Taylor both are very high on Detroit. They had them in as their number 7 team. Excuse me. Sean was at 11. I was at 12. Zach at 13. Kennedy at 14. And you at 16. So kind of right in there with a couple of people really buying in to this team. The Detroit Lions will win the NFC North if Aiden Hutchinson becomes a total menace on the defensive line, because I really have doubts on the secondary for the Lions right now. I think that is their biggest weakness. It kind of helps that they're in a division where none of their quarterbacks are top tier right now. When Kirk Cousins is your best quarterback in a division, it's not that great. So they can hide the fact that their secondary is not that great, but it really has to come up that defensive line and Hutchinson to really create havoc and not give opposing quarterbacks time to find those holes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really like the way that man plays, but for me, it's going to boil down to what impact that Gibbs can do. I think Gibbs could be the top in the top 3 running backs in the NFC. I think he could do that if he comes out, plays 100%. But that's also meaning St. Brown has got to get another 1,000-yard season. I think if those two things happen, Detroit's got a good chance of making the playoffs.
All right, go to the Green Bay Packers. They get Tavarius Moore. That was kind of all I found. There wasn't a lot of additions. They did lose this guy named Aaron Rodgers. I guess he's okay. They also lose Alan Lazard to the same team. Tunyon is gone to a different team in the division. They also lose Mercedes Lewis. That's a lot of pieces offensively. And Mason Crosby is kind of an interesting loss for them. Obviously, he got up there in age and he wasn't as accurate as he used to be. But it'll just be weird to see the Packers without Mason Crosby. Went some offense there in the draft. Lucas Van Ness on the edge first, and then a couple of pass catchers throughout the draft. Jordan Love now he's the quarterback. There's no question about it. This is the first time that the Packers are coming into a season without Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterbacks since like 1992. Is Love going to be the third of the trio, or are the Packers in trouble?
I think after hearing some of them talk the first couple of days of preseason camp, today, he's looking quite well. And I think that's the biggest part. To play behind an icon like Aaron Rodgers, it's a ton of pressure. And I think he's exactly he's going to get there. It might take a little bit of time for that team to get there, but eventually he's going to be. I don't think he'll be the franchise face, but he'll get a couple years in.
So apparently I goofed up. Zach was watching our show. I brought up Hard Knocks, and he just messaged me on Facebook that after Hard Knocks, he's now sold on Old Man Rogers. So I sent him away from our show. So that's bad on me. It'll be interesting with Jordan Love. I talked about some of the veteran targets leaving the team. I do like some of the young players that they have. Obviously, Rogers was not a big fan of rookie wide receivers and was very frustrated with Green Bay. But you got to remember, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are in the backfield. I think the Packers are going to really rely on both of those guys and make them both workhorses for this team. While I don't fully believe in Jordan Love just yet, I don't know if he is going to be the Don Mazkowski 2.0, as Eric Watkins had said. Power rankings, who had him the highest? Eric and I both had them at 18. We were the highest on Green Bay. Kennedy and Zach both had them at 19. You were at 20. And then Sean at 26, Harry at 28, and Robert Taylor at 29. So we were basically split about almost middle of the pack to battling out for a top 5 pick. It'll be very interesting to see how they go. But Mr. Hagan, the Green Bay Packers will win the NFC North if...
And you said on a minute ago, they have to rely on Dillon and Jones, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. They have to rely on them. Keep it close with the NFC North games when they are playing against them, and they'll keep themselves in the talk. But those two guys have to be quite dependable for this season to be successful.
For me, again, it kind of goes back with Jordan Love, because if this happens, Jordan Love had a good year. But the Packers will win the division if both Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs both top 1,000 yards receiving. I think the running game is going to be there. But if those young receivers... Where did I go? Hi, I'm here. That was weird. If both of those guys can connect with Jordan Love and have a a good balanced offense, I think they could be okay. Do I believe in it? We will see with predictions. Finally, the Minnesota Vikings, they add some pieces defensively, but obviously the big loss is Dalvin Cook as the running back, Adam Thielen at the wide receiver, Irv Smith Jr. was good as a tight end. They lose Patrick Peterson as well. Minnesota dominated this division last year. Do they have any chance of doing that again this year?
I think so. As Jefferson, one of the best receivers out there, Kirk Cousins still throwing it to him. I think where we lean a little bit in for me is, how does this team look when it's not Dalvin Cook there? Madison was there last year. Now he's going to get most all of the carries. It's going to be interesting with that one, but it boils down to defense again.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to dominate. What has happened with my notes? Everything is happening over here. I don't know what's happening with my computer.
Well, I know whatever you did just affected my notes too.
I don't know what just happened. I've lost it all. Everything is gone. Let me scroll down to where I kind of was. There we go. Oh, I was sending the notes over from our sports-related draft, and apparently I hit cut instead of copy, so I've moved all of those. And they're now moved somewhere. What has happened here?
You put our draft picks in our... Holy...
They are just copied and pasted all over the place. The notes died. The notes are gone. I've lost my place. So there you go. The show has now just been derailed by my misclicking, apparently. For the Vikings, we were very much kind of in the middle for them. Robert Taylor had them best at 11th. Sean and Zach had them at the bottom at 18th. I tried, dude. I tried to Control Z. I tried to hit back. I tried everything. I broke it. It's all right. It's no big deal. We will survive. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle of the road for them. I think it's between them and Detroit as far as winning the division. And let's get to it now. What are your predictions for the NFC North?
I'm trying to get back to where my notes are at. So I think it's going to end up being. I'm kind of like Harry. I think it's going to be up in the air. I think it could be between Minnesota and Detroit. It's a lot closer than you think. I think Chicago finishes fourth. Green Bay third, Detroit second, and Minnesota first. But I think that could be flip flop 1-2.
Yeah, it's not even like letting me select. Oh, there, I created a footer. How do I? Let's remove that. There we go. That should fix it.
Hey,
There we go. Somehow I put it in the footer. All of those things. So it was on every page. That's what was driving me nuts. There we go. We're close. I will say the Detroit Lions will win the NFC North, but I don't think the Vikings are any slouches by any means. So Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. That is where I will rank the NFC North. You got some other NFL news before we move on?
Just real quick, a few things. Big one, Kareem Hunt visits New Orleans, and after his visit in New Orleans, he decides he's going to go see the Indianapolis Colts, which is the better fit for Mr. Hunt, sir.
Probably Indy. I like that fit in Indy. He has a better chance of winning with New Orleans, but I like that fit with the Colts, especially if they can figure out that stuff with Jonathan Taylor. He would be a good backup for them.
Still no deal in San Francisco with Nick Bose. Should San Francisco be worried? 5 days until their first preseason game. Is he going to get a deal done in the next week?
I would definitely get worried because especially defenders that hold out and don't get these deals done and push it farther and closer to the season, they get injured. Not the Yankees, but the Jets had this issue with Darrelle Revis, and he held out and then had hamstring issues all year. So, yeah, I would be worried if I was the 49ers.
And the last one we'll go to, Eric Bieniemy is being called being too tough in his preseason workouts for the Commanders.
Suck it up, Buttercups.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We want a winning team, and he wants to prove himself. We've both been on Bieniemy to be a coach out there. Listen, he's getting his chance to take the reins in Washington, and you know what? Learn from the best. Here we go.
Real quick, let's move on to the Women's World Cup, where the United States were eliminated early Sunday morning. They lose 5-4 to Sweden in penalties. If you've not seen the highlights of these penalty kicks, it's just brutal to watch. It's rough, but it's another scoreless tie for the United States. They basically tied their last 3 games. Obviously, this one with penalty kicks, they end up getting eliminated. Did not score in their last 2 games. So, yes, you're not going to be able to continue to go bonkers in a world stage like the U.S. had, where they won back-to-back World Cups. By the way, the men have done nothing. But it was kind of a disappointing outing, I think, for the women this year.
So my question to you is, do they get rid of Vlatko and Novoski after not making the finals in the last 2 tournaments that they've played in?
Say that again.
Does U.S. Soccer Federation fire Vlatko and Novoski after not making the finals in the last 2 tournaments?
He might be, but they're kind of in a transition right now. Some of the big stars that they had in those 2 World Cups are gone, but you have to be able to evolve. The one thing I will say is I get that there's political reasons behind it because some of the players on this team are a bit outspoken about their beliefs. I'm not here for any of that, but the hatred for this team, I just do not understand. Like, Americans were celebrating the loss of this American team and talking about how they are just so terrible. Again, if you think the women's soccer team is so bad, go watch the men. They suck. They're horrible. So I feel bad for the women. I don't care about their political beliefs. That you could be outspoken about that stuff. So again, what a lot of people like to say, it's a free country. You can have your beliefs. That's cool. I don't care. Just perform on the field. It just did not happen for the women this year. So disappointing. And yes, it could be the end of the coach because, it was a very disappointing year for them. Final 8 teams. You have Spain versus the Netherlands, Japan versus Sweden, Australia versus France, and England versus Colombia. Let's move on now to Aussie rules football. And your Geelong Cats did okay, I think.
Yeah, they played quite well, especially with your boy Tom Hawkins not playing, dealing with
Okay,
an
he didn't play.
injury. So, yeah, so he watched from the game, but knocked off the number 2 team, Port Adelaide, 97-85. Ollie Henry had a great game, 4 goals, led the Cats with that. And are you concerned? This is Port Adelaide's 4th straight loss. Are they spiraling out of control?
Yeah, I'm more worried about them with their losses than I am with another team that has gotten a couple of losses, and then we'll just move over here to those standings. Again, they're fine. They're kind of just built to be in this top 4. I don't think anyone's catching them. Carlton has been on a complete roll as of late. So maybe they've taken their foot off the gas and they're trying to get healthy, but you still want to have momentum going in to the tournament. And yeah, it kind of shows you where Eric feels like they're pretty much done. Or these losses right now don't hurt them, but you've got to be able to get into that upswing. And you're really not seeing it from them or from Collingwood, who lost to my Hawthorn Hawks somehow. But again, I'm not super worried about those 2 teams yet, but if it continues this way for the final couple of weeks and they don't right the ship, the finals this year could be interesting because 2 of your top 4 teams are going completely in the wrong direction. And then you have a team like Carlton, who was basically wrote off 2 months ago and now are on a complete swing right now.
Yeah, and it's crazy. They're winner of 7 over the last few. And so that's the team that I would be scared to face, and big one. So, but Western comes around with a big win, 126-71. I think that was a huge one. And again, like we said, Carlton upsetting St. Kilda 73-54. St. Kilda was up there in the top of the ladder. So it's going to be interesting coming into the last 3 weeks of this season. So
yeah, as you see, a lot of changes happen in the top 8. A lot of teams that are just outside of the top 8, including your Geelong Cats, who are sitting there in 9th. Sydney's a pretty good team. They're right out there as well. So it's really, really fun right now to be an Aussie Rules football fan.
And I think FS1 or Fox Sports figured it out, because this week there are some great TV matchups to watch if you're not watching. Number 1, Collingwood takes on number 9, Geelong. We're just right outside of it. That is going to be the first game of the night, 2:50 a.m. on Friday evening. Sydney, we just talked about a few minutes ago, it's going to be taking on Gold Coast on Friday night. That's one of those games you can actually sit up and watch and be there.
Yeah, that won't be
bad. But the hottest team playing, Carlton, takes on Melbourne at 2:25 Saturday morning. That's another great game.
That's one neither of us are going to be able to watch, because we have the golf bowling tournament later that Saturday. So I don't expect me to watch that game, at least live, but we'll see. Just super quick, just give me 30 seconds on golf, because we got to get to a couple other stuff and we're almost out of time.
Lucas Glover wins his tournament, shoots 2 under on Sunday to take his 5th career PGA win. It's his first win since 2021. And Glover has been hot. He has 4 or top 6 places in the past 5 weeks. He did miss the cut at the 3M, so it'll be interesting. But we now hit playoff time, sir, and this week is the first week, and it's switched a little bit. Only the top 70 get in, and Justin Thomas and Adam Scott miss the cut for the first time in the FedEx playoffs. Joel Damon started the day 82 the weekend, and he finished 84th.
This is way more than 30 seconds. This is way more than 30 seconds.
Bryson DeChambeau, yes, Liv shoots a 58 in that tournament the other day, so big thing. But do you have a favorite going into the playoffs?
I would have to even look. I have no idea. Honestly, I've just not followed golf a lot this year. I'll watch the majors and stuff, but golf is a sport that does not need a playoff. I can't stand the way they do this end of the year stuff. Just every tournament should be its thing. We don't need a year long whatever. I've never gotten into it. So,
And they did announce their 36 tournaments. They'll start January 4th for the 2023 season.
there you go. NASCAR was at Michigan. Rain pushed it back to Monday. Chris Buescher has now won back-to-back races. He held off Martin Truex Jr. for the win. Chase Elliott wrecked early on in that race, which basically puts him in must-win territory. He has to win one of these next 3 races if he wants to make the playoffs.
I was with Dad. I felt bad for Reddick as he had went in, pitted, and his tire did not go on the right side. Dropped him all the way down to 30th place, 28th place, something like that.
Yeah, if we don't get another first-time winner this year, the last playoff spot's going to get really fun over these last 3 weeks. Right now, Ty Gibbs is in that last spot, 3 points ahead of Michael McDowell, and just 5 points ahead of Daniel Suarez. So it could get really interesting. Obviously, if you get another first-time winner, everything else kind of goes down a spot. There he is. I told him to
come on, Zach,
get the vote in. And there you go. That gives me the 2-1 win.
I think that's a fellow Bengal voting. Am I right?
Huh? Fellow Bengal. Zach's from Boise.
No,
He's from Southern Idaho, man. He doesn't hate your Bantams. I mean, he would if he knew them. But no. All right, real quick. I wanted to get through that real fast because I want you to just get quick thoughts. SummerSlam was last weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed this show. It's not a conclusion. I sent him our notes and said, who wins? He told me who won. I go, you need to put it on the chat for it to count. And he did. I can show you the chat. It's legit. SummerSlam results. I really loved the show. I know a lot of people hated the way the main event ended. I thought the main event was long, but I have zero problems with how it ended. But again, I'm going to say 30 seconds again. You do 3 minutes every time. We have 4 minutes left on the show. All right. 30 seconds on each match. Just your quick take on all of these real quick. Logan Paul defeated Ricochet. Your thoughts?
Hated the brass knuckles thing. We'll see what happens with Adam Pearce.
He's a heel.
I know he is.
Gives him a reason to win. It was a cool showcase match. Very athletic. A lot of fun. Cody Rhodes defeated Brock Lesnar. Thoughts on that one?
Mad respect for Brock Lesnar at the very end. It's now got the feeling of Cody is back to where he should be.
Yeah, the fact that Brock did that on his own, that was not part of the script, was very, very cool. By the way, match of the night was this one. Really, really cool bout of Brock Lesnar destroying Cody Rhodes, telling him to stay down. Cody kept fighting back. They built that really well. LA Knight won the SummerSlam Battle Royal. I don't care. I love LA Knight. He's really fun. His promo on Raw with The Miz was fantastic. It's a Battle Royal. I do not care. Shayna Baszler defeated Ronda Rousey in the worst match of the night.
Yeah, I agree. Wasn't one that I wanted to watch, but it was a submission hold. That's what they were trying to build it up to. But I agree. Bad, worst one.
Gunther retained against Drew McIntyre in the Intercontinental Championship match. I was a little disappointed, but my hopes were really high to this match. It was very good, but I was just my expectations were too high, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a good match. Drew McIntyre, one of my favorite ones right now. Not the way I figured it was going to end for him falling on the top rope.
Seth Rollins retained against Finn Balor in the World Heavyweight Championship match. So once again, I'm predicting this Judgment Day fallout. It doesn't happen. This match was awesome. I was very close to topping the Cody Rhodes Brock Lesnar match for me, but I had a lot of fun watching that match.
And I feel it imploding a little bit, the friendship, just a little bit. But how about that stomp right into the briefcase?
It kind of set up a little bit too much to make it look like it was an accident, but it was all right. Then Bianca Belair defeated Asuka and Charlotte Flair to win the WWE Women's Championship.
Yay!
Until Io Sky cashed in, and now she's the new champion. I thought the match was okay. Had rough parts at the beginning. I give the women credit for doing enough spots where it wasn't just one person rolls out and the other two wrestle. They tried to get all three involved, but then it does look a bit scripted that way. They put in some great efforts. Belair, even though I knew she wasn't hurt, just the way. By the way, everyone out there, all wrestling's scripted, wrestling's fake, whatever. Just get over yourselves. It's not a big deal. My favorite thing to do is try to find these little things that help you show whether somebody's really hurt or not. If anyone ever goes down, you can know instantly if they're injured or not by one thing. Count the doctors to referee ratio. If there's more referees than doctors, it's a work. If there's just a doctor that rushes to them and the referees stay in the back, it's fine. Bianca Belair went down and 7 striped shirts were around her. I went, well, of course, this is a work thing. Just an FYI for anyone ever knowing. And then, of course, Roman Reigns retained against Jey Uso in the tribal combat match because, as I said, Jimmy Uso cost Jey. And for those saying, oh, they didn't build this up at all, they have. You just haven't been paying attention. But your thoughts?
And exactly. Go back to the women's one. The 2 women's matchups were the bottom 2 of my favorites. This one, Jay had a heck of a match with Roman back and forth. I liked the match. You said it. You called it. The ending was going to be Jimmy, but hats off to what Jay did against his cousin.
We will next week talk about the AFC and NFC South divisions and give you our predictions. Again, kind of reference back to our power rankings. Again, those won't get updated till the season gets started. We'll talk about our golf bowling tournament that is this weekend. We'll see if my strategy of not picking up a golf club for an entire year will work out. Spoilers, it won't, but that's okay. We always suck on the golf portion and try to make up on the bowling side. We'll see how that goes. And we will preview Lewis Clark State volleyball, nearly a completely new team for that squad, new head coach as well. We'll try to get her on the show next week if that is possible. I know Alicia right now is out of town. She's went to 2 more baseball parks since she was on the show last week. The lady's insane. So a lot going on next week. Again, good luck to Demitri Morales. We will have another show before his actual fight, but his interview was fantastic, and we always appreciate him coming on the show. And again, congratulations to Case Why Not for announcing his commitment to Utah State. Yes, the trivia question before we go: which player is the only player to play in the Little League World Series, College World Series, Major League Baseball World Series, and play on an Olympic team? We've only had one person take a guess, and that was Dimitri's mom, and she guessed Cody Bellinger. Robert, you have the answer. Is she correct?
No, she is not. It ends up being Jason Varitek. Can you see the picture finally?
No, I still can't. I don't know if they can, but I can't see the picture. Yeah, there it is. It popped up. It just popped up.
Jason Varitek, and he was Travis Hafner. That was a good guess. So, but great one there. But that was a fun one to find information for.
Don't forget, I mean, there's nothing going on for the first 5 minutes of the show as we get things prepped, but we have a trivia question for you. At least we try to add things as well. So thank you to everyone that hung around and watched the show and commented. Again, thank you to Demitri for hopping on the show. That's it for another jam-packed episode of the R&R Sports Report. We go in over 2 hours again. We can't help it. It's impossible, and it's going to get worse. Welcome to our nightmare. But until then, that's Robert Hagan. I'm Randy Isbell. This is the R&R Sports Report. And until next week, we